What do you think of a move like banning an audit firm to prevent frauds going forward?
As I said earlier, that I don't want to generalize, and let's not talk about cases where there is fraud and that fraud has been proven. And I think those cases need to be resolved through courts. I think for a majority of other audits, what one needs to understand is what an audit is really geared up to deliver and what is not geared up to deliver. And certainly there, everybody has a responsibility. I think auditors need to, first of all, understand that our current audit product is not delivering that assurance that the market demands. We can't just throw the rule book every time we are asked that you should have picked up this fraud, you should have picked up many things before a fraud. There are many other things. And I think auditors need to do more there anyway, even to educate the marketplace. And I think just throwing the rule book that an auditor was not supposed to pick up fraud. But at the same time, there are many pillars of corporate governance. There are many layers of defense. The management itself, the board, the internal auditor, the regulator, the banker. I think everybody has a responsibility. The auditor was never expected to be the insurer of the last resort. And I think we need to lead that conversation as a profession to first own up that we need to do more, evolve our product so that it keeps up with the needs of the market, ensure that there is better understanding of what we currently do and a better understanding, frankly, of the needs of the market, and at the same time, by all means.
Okay, coming back to my question, which was, does a regulatory ban appear as a solution to prevent frauds? So I am asking you, without naming instances or cases, I am talking about a hypothetical situation where.
No. Let me answer straight up. I absolutely, and I'm on record saying this on many platforms. Banning an entire audit firm, other than in absolute exceptional circumstances, should be like putting somebody in prison.
Okay.
It should be the last resort. There are many things before that that can be done, because banning an audit firm will not eventually support the ultimate objective, which is enhancing audit quality, which is better financial reporting so that capital markets can function better.
Correct.
Banning an audit firm will just reduce capacity, will cause more disruption. The partners and clients will have to run to look for new jobs and new service providers. All that energy can go towards enhancing audit quality by, of course, dealing with individuals who were involved in cases, or indeed firms, but proportionately. Now, what are some of the steps that can be taken, which are not necessarily banning? I call banning the nuclear option. Let's go nuke, this firm because it was involved in a particular case. Instead of that, there are many things that can be done. As I said, deal with the individual partner, team members. You could ask the firm you could of course penalize the firm. You could stop the firm from taking on any new work for a while. You could get somebody from NFRA or a regulator to start monitoring the firm for a while. You can take many steps, right? Which are before banning the entire firm.
True.
And but before any step is taken, the question that ought to be asked is this step going to enhance audit quality in any way, or is this step only going to cause more disruption in the market?
Okay. And you mentioned only in extreme exceptional circumstances should this instrument be exploited. What are those extreme exceptional circumstances?
Very clear. Only when you're clear that the entire chain of command of a firm was involved in collusive management fraud. Right? When you can show that not only an audit team, the head of audit in the firm, the leadership team, members of that were aware of the highest level at what was going on, and that has been proven in court with evidence, not alleged by a whistleblower or alleged by some regulator. When it's been proven in court in a free and fair trial, absolutely the right answer there is potentially to go and ban the firm from ever operating.
And not in case of utter gross negligence.
In the case of an individual gross negligence, absolutely not. I think there are many other solutions, as I said, which are more proportionate to that crime.
All right.
Right? But willful misconduct is different to gross negligence.
Correct.
And I think willful misconduct by many layers Once that's proven in court, of course, the right answer there would be to take that entity out of business.
So, as a part of the solutions,
would you ever fly an airline where a particular pilot showed up drunk at duty? You probably will, right? Provided that airline took steps that in the future they have better checks around that. Would you ever fly an airline where you understood pilots regularly come to work drunk, and the head of the pilots in that company and the board and the CEO all look the other side when that happens?
No, not at all. Of course not. But what I'm trying to gauge from you is then why, in some instances, again without specifically mentioning them, but why in some instances regulators are hell-bent on taking this action? And this is not only one regulator. We have seen this action taken by other few regulators. Again, I don't want to name them, but we have seen a banking regulator also doing the same, taking the same step in case of the so-called Big Four firm.
Yeah, so I think at the moment it's proposed, it has to go through the court process. As I said earlier, till a few years ago, right at the beginning we discussed, till a few years ago, there was very little attention on audit or auditors. The Companies Act came in post Satyam, the first big corporate fraud that shook the country. And a lot of these norms, including the ability to act against an entire firm, came in the Companies Act. Before that, what was allowed was only to act against a partner. And for very good reason. I'm not saying banning an entire firm is never appropriate, but to ban an entire firm, and the regulators must check that wasn't the case. In the case of IL&FS, the one that's being discussed, I would encourage the regulators to check that, was this restricted to, a certain set of, first of all, did the auditors do what they were supposed to do, right? After they did what they were supposed to do, were they aware, was there any fraud, right? Once the fraud is proven, then who all were involved in that fraud? Was it up the chain of command of the entire firm? And if the chain of command of a firm is involved and was aware and participated, then it is willful misconduct and it would be justified. But I think the law has to take its course. Yeah, just because there was a corporate failure, one can't say there was necessarily fraud.
Sure.
And yes, if there was fraud, you can't necessarily say the auditors were aware or involved. If the auditors were aware or involved, you can't say that the chain of command of the firm was aware or involved.
Correct.
Right? Once you've proven those things, it's absolutely right to go ahead and ban it.
But if in the IL&FS case, if it's proven in the court that it is gross negligence, then banning a firm is too radical a solution to think about.
Too radical a solution to think about? Absolutely. If it's gross negligence, the action against that will be proportionate is a penalty. Is acting against the individuals for a while, so they are not grossly negligent. Sure. It's the same thing as banning an entire hospital because a doctor had a bad day, right? It's terrible when a doctor has a bad day. It affects somebody's life or some part of their body. It is absolutely terrible when that happens. But is the right solution to go ahead and ban the entire hospital when there are we don't even have enough capacity in our country to be able to serve our country?